We're going to read from the Atra Hasis tonight, all right? And the reason why I'm doing this is because I know the majority of people are never going to read this text. So I'm going to read it for you, and you're going to listen. Now, there are some dead spots or some question mark spots where some of the stone was damaged and some of the wording could not be deciphered, right? So let's get into this. When the gods instead of man, so we're talking about these gods, but notice the gods even in here have a lowercase g, not a capital G for the creator of the universe, a lowercase g, meaning man has deified these people, even though these people were not the creators of the universe, but they had advanced knowledge and advanced technology. They did the work and bore the loads. So the gods used to do the work and bore the load. Now think about this for a second. What are they talking about, do the work? They're talking about, this epic is kind of really beginning when these people came down from heaven to earth and began to turn mud into a kingdom. In the ancient Kemetic text, right, then the Turu turned mud into a kingdom. These are the same exact people from the land of Kemet. Now they say when the gods instead of man did the work and bore the loads. The gods' load was too great. Now think about this for a second. Why in the world would the creator of the universe need to work and do labor and do hard labor? Why? Why would the God of the universe have to bear the load and do labor? The work was too hard. The trouble was too much. Well, think about that. Well, what trouble? What work? If you're God, if you're the creator of the universe, why is the work too hard? Why is the load too hard to bear? The great Anunnaki made the Igigi carry the workload sevenfold. Now, the Igigi, you've heard me talk about the Igigi, right? The Igigi were these working class Anunnaki beings, and they were really like volunteers when you analyze the text. They were not slaves. However, they were being treated like slaves. They were being treated like lower class citizens. And so they were starting to get pissed off because they were given 7 times the workload as the other gods. And these people are, like I said, gods with a lowercase g. They're just men. They're flesh and blood people that put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you and me. So they made them carry the workload sevenfold. Anu, their father, was king. So Anu was like the head figure, right? A-N-U. Their chamberlain was Ninurta. Their canal controller, Inuji. They took the box of lots and cast the lots. The gods made the division. Anu went up to the sky, and Enlil took the earth for his people. The bolt which bars the sea was assigned to far-sighted Enki. When Anu had gone up to the sky, and the gods of the Apsu had gone below, the Anunnaki of the sky made the Igigi bear the workload. So these people went up into their sky ship. They're just kicking back. They got their feet up. They're relaxed. They're chilling. They said, you guys do all the work. We're going to sit back and watch from the sky. Just keep laboring. Keep creating this breakaway civilization that we started here. Keep laboring and keep digging these canals and building the buildings and laying down the plumbing and everything else. We're going to watch from the sky. Now, this is written before these Anunnaki had engaged mankind, our cousins that were already here on the planet. They weren't Homo sapiens sapien like us, but they were a version of us. They weren't engaged by these people yet, though. These people were still doing the work themselves to create their own breakaway civilization, kind of really ignoring us and leaving us alone, believe it or not. So he says, when Anu had gone up to the sky and the gods of the Apsu had gone below, the Anunnaki of the sky made the Igigi bear the workload. The gods had to dig out canals. Now, why in the world are gods digging out canals? So we're clearly talking about flesh and blood people. We're talking about people that had advanced technology and advanced knowledge. We're not talking about creators of the universe. So he says, the gods had to dig out canals, had to clear channels, the lifelines of the land. Talking about farming now. The Igigi had to dig out canals, had to clear channels, lifelines of the land. The gods dug out the Tigris River. Wow. And then dug out the Euphrates. Then there's some missing pieces of the tablet. It says, in the deep, they set up the Apsu of the land. Inside it, raised its top. all of the mountains. They were counting the years of loads. They had been laboring for quite some time, by the way. The great marsh, they were counting the years of loads. For 3,600 years, they bore the excess. 3,600 years is one rotation of their home planet around our sun. They call it a shar, according to these Anunnaki people. Hard work, night and day. They groaned and blamed each other. This is how you know they're not real gods. They groaned. They're in pain. People are hurting. This back-breaking labor going on. They groaned and blamed each other, grumbled over the masses of excavated soil. Let us confront our masters, the Chamberlain, and get him to relieve us of our hard work. Come, let us carry, then it says the Lord, I think it was trying to say Lord Enki, something to the counselor of the gods, because it's a broken piece of the tablet. The counselor of gods, the warrior from his dwelling, come, let us carry Enlil. Enlil is Yahweh in the modern day Bible. Let me tell you that again. In the modern day Bible, Enlil is Yahweh. He is the God that came back to Eden and noticed that the people had gained some damn sense and realized that they weren't freaking animals and put on clothes and got some knowledge in their freaking head from Enki, and he got pissed off about it. Enlil is the one, if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh and a lot of these other ancient tablets, that's killing off humans by the thousands and tens of thousands because they're just making too much noise. We're talking about a very evil person, an evil, evil person that ruled over this planet for quite some time. The council of the gods, the warrior from his dwelling. So they said, let's get to Enlil and talk to him. We got to get to the counselor of the gods. This guy's the head man in charge. We need to holler at him and tell him, hey man, our backs are breaking here doing this labor. Then Allah made his voice heard. Oh, Allah. You thought that came from the Quran? No, it comes from the Sumerian tablets. And spoke of the gods, his brothers. There's a gap about 8 lines right here. He says, come, let us carry the counselor of gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Come, let us carry Enlil, the counselor of gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Now cry battle. Let us mix fight with battle. The gods listened to his speech, set fire to their tools, put aside their spades for fire, their loads for fire god. They flared up. When they reached the gate of warrior, Enlil's dwelling, it was night in the middle watch. So what's happening here? There's a coup going on. There's a coup going on. These Igigi people, according to these tablets, were working on Earth and also working on Mars at the same exact time. They're working in 2 locations, Earth and Mars, according to these tablets, not according to Billy Carson. And the work was 7 times the load to bear. So what happens? It says that they come down. The gods descended from Lamu. They come down from Mars to Earth to encircle the encampment of Enlil where he slept. Because now they're like, hey, we've been begging for relief. We've been asking for a break. We've been working for thousands of years. And their complaint was that, hey, man, we need a break. And if we don't get a break, we're going to go to war. These are the sons of God that fell from heaven to earth and went against the Lord, right? This is what made it into the Bible, but this is the actual real story right here, the real story. So he said, the house was surrounded by the god, but the god had not realized. It was night, the middle watch. Ekur was surrounded. Ekur is their fort. Enlil had not realized, yet Kalkal was attentive and had it closed. He held the lock and watched the gate. Kalkal roused Nuxu. They listened to the noise of the Igigi. The Nuxu roused his master. Woke him up. Get up, man. They out here. They're about to attack us, man. Made him get out of bed. My lord, your house is surrounded. A rabble is running around your door. Enlil, your house is surrounded. A rabble is running around your door. Enlil had weapons brought to his dwelling. Oh, they got weapons. And trust me, these ain't sticks. These are not sticks, okay? With carved rocks on the tip. with sharp rocks on the edge. These are real weapons. He says, take your weapons and stand in front of me. Nuxu barred his door, took up his weapons and stood in front of Enlil. Nuxu made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Enlil. Oh, my lord, your face is, then it's got a damage here to the stone. Your face is Tamarisk. Why do you fear your own sons? So he's saying, hey, man, these are your people too. Like, what's going on here? Right? Listen to them. Oh, Enlil, your face is shallow. Tamarisk, why do you fear your own sons? Send for Anu to be brought down to you. Have Enki fetched into your presence. He sent for Anu. Anu is their father, right? He's the lead dude, right? He's the main guy. He sent for Anu to be brought down to him. Enki was fetched into his presence. So they went and got Enki, they went and got Anu. So now you got Anu, who's the father. You got Enki, who's the son, and you got Enlil, who's another son. So these are two brothers, Enki and Enlil. As a matter of fact, Earth is named after Ea Enki. Ea, right? And then Ki is Earth. So that's where we get the name Earth from. It comes from an ancient Sumerian, quote unquote, lowercase g god, who just happens to be the father of Atrahasis, the guy that wrote the epic. All right, so this guy that I'm reading from, he's actually half human and half Anunnaki. Pretty interesting. That's where you get the name demigod from, right? The term demigod. So check this out. He says he sent for Anu to be brought down to him. Enki was fetched into his presence. Anu, king of the sky, was present. They went and they contacted Anu, who was in the sky ship, and he came down to the planet. They went and got him. They summoned him, and he came on down. He never liked to stay down here too much, spend too much time on the surface of the planet. He'd rather hang out in his sky ship. That's what the text always says. Anu, king of the sky, was present. Enki, king of Apsu, attended. The great Anunnaki were present. Oh, there goes that word again, Anunnaki. I guess it is a real word in real ancient text, not fabricated and made up by Zachariah Sitchin, because Zachariah Sitchin didn't make up that name like a lot of these bad YouTube videos try to say. Enlil got up and the chase was put. Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. Is it against me that they have risen? Shall I do battle? What did I see in my own eyes? A rabble was running around my door. Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Enlil. Let Nuxu go out and find out word of the Igigi. In other words, let's go out there, send Nuxu out there to talk to these crazy people and tell us what they want. What do you want? Who have surrounded your door? A command to Enlil was made. His voice was heard and spoke to Vizier Nuxu. Nuxu, open your door, take up your weapons, and stand before me. In the assembly of all the gods, bow, then stand and tell them, your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Inuji have sent me to say, who is in charge of this rabble? Who is in charge of the fighting? Who declared war? Who ran the door of Enlil? Who ran to the door of Enlil? In other words, who's in charge here? Who's the one commanding this coup against the rulers of planet Earth? Who is it? Who allowed you guys, who approved this mission for you guys to come down from Mars to Earth, to gather up any Igigi on Earth, and to come over here today? Where are they? They're in South Africa. They're at Adam's Calendar in South Africa, which exists right now today. You can go there and you'll find the oldest gold mines on Earth, 200,000 years old, okay? You'll find them right there, all right? He says, who ran to the door of Enlil? Nuxu opened his door, took up his weapons, and went before Enlil in the assembly of all the gods. He bowed, then stood before and told the message. Father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Inuji have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble? So it repeats itself here. Who declared war? I guess they're not answering, so they're asking this question again. Enlil says, every single one of us, gods declare war. We have put a stop to the digging. Now this is where the Igigi is speaking here. They said, we have put a stop to the digging. In other words, we're done doing the slave work. We're not working anymore. Do you notice the trend here about when you enslave somebody, even if you don't call them a slave, when you abuse somebody's natural living rights, at some point, it might take thousands of years, but at some point, the people will rebel. I don't care what planet you're from. The people will rebel. He said, we have put a stop to the digging. The load is excessive. It is killing us. Our work is too hard. The trouble is too much. So every single one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil. See, they call themselves gods. Did you hear that? Every single one of us gods, they didn't call themselves slaves. They recognize that they're gods, that they're powerful. Every one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil, who's the most evil one of them all. Nuxu took his weapons, went and returned to Enlil. My lord, you sent me. And I went and I explained. Every single one of us gods declare war, they said. We have put a stop to the digging. The load is excessive. It is killing us. Our work is too hard. The trouble is too much. So every single one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil. So he repeated the speech to Enlil. Enlil listened to that speech. His tears flowed. Oh, this guy's got a little compassion now all of a sudden. Enlil spoke guardedly, addressed the warrior anew. Noble one, take a decree with you to the sky. Oh, with you to the sky. He's telling the dad to get back up to the ship and send a decree up there. Show your strength while the Anunnaki are sitting before you. Call up one god and let them cast him for destruction. You see? He thought he was crying because he was sad that the people were working too hard. Nah. He was crying because, you know what? I love these people, but man, you know what? I'm gonna have to destroy him anyway. This guy's a psychopathic narcissist. This guy's a psychopathic narcissist. And that shows up in the biblical text as well. When he destroys the Tower of Babel and all, that's a whole nother podcast. But it was Enlil that destroyed the Tower of Babel in the biblical text in the Old Testament. How do I know that? What's in ancient tablets? That they just copied the story. The guy's just the absolute ultimate narcissist. Psychopathic narcissist, by the way. Check this out. He says, Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. What are we complaining of? Their work was indeed too hard. He's like, Enlil, come on, man. Are you serious? Like, you want me to blow up this city from the space, from my ship, from the sky? Like, for real, dude? Like, these people are suffering, man. Like, you put too much work on them. I mean, it ain't a mystery. Like, you're busting their backs. He said the work was indeed too hard. The trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough. We kept hearing the noise. He's saying, they've been telling us this. They've been complaining to us. They've been pissed off and angry. They've been letting us know they're overworked. The load is too hard to bear. And we keep ignoring them. And now, here they are. They're ready to go to battle against us because we didn't listen. Does these sound like the gods that created the universe? They sound like people to me. I'm just saying. I'm just asking for a friend because these are the ones that are in the biblical text. While the Anunnaki were sitting before you, and while Bilit Ili, the womb goddess, is present, call up one and cast him for destruction. Anu made his voice heard and spoke to Nuxu. Nuxu, open your door, take your weapons, bow in the assembly of the great gods, and then stand. And tell them your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Inerta, and your canal controller Inuji have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble? Who will be in charge of the battle? Which guard started the war? A rabble was running around my door. When Nuxu heard this, he took up his weapons, bowed in the assembly of the great gods, then stood and told them, your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Inerta, and your canal controller Inuji have sent me to say, who is in charge of this rabble? And he kind of repeats it there, a little bit, but that's how it is, right? It's pretty interesting. Ea, that's Enki, made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. Why are we blaming them? Enki says. Why are we blaming them? Enki is the same person who's considered to be the serpent that showed up in the Garden of Eden and talked to Adam and Eve. Same exact person. And when his brother shows up, Enlil, who aka Yahweh, he's pissed off because these people done gained some damn sense. The apple that Eve ate wasn't an apple like off of a tree, a physical apple like a piece of fruit. It was knowledge. What does apple represent? Knowledge. They gained knowledge by talking to Enki, that they were self-aware, that they were sentient beings, that they were on the same level as the Anunnaki, and that they weren't animals, and that this was a laboratory and they were being experimented on for mating purposes to duplicate and create a slave race. Enki had his voice heard and spoke to the gods as brothers. Why are you blaming them? Their work was too hard. Their trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough. We kept hearing the noise. There it is. Billet Eli, the womb goddess, is present. Let her create a primeval man. Got to read the way this is broken down from the Sumerian. Let her create primeval man. So this is where, now we've reached a point where Enki is like, okay, either we're going to go to battle against this mob of angry Ijiji and lose because they outnumber us, or we got to come up with a solution, and we better come up with one pretty damn quick. We better come up with a solution pretty damn quick, or it's going to be all over for us. This will be our last stand right here, right? So Enki says, you know, I have an idea. Let the womb goddess create a primeval man. This is the first instance of engaging and genetically modifying the existing hominid on this planet that they used to, at that point, were leaving alone. They came here about 450,000 years ago, and they worked for 250,000 of those 450,000 years themselves, when you add up all the shards in the ancient text, right? And then 200,000 years ago, they decided to do this primeval man and make them bear the load. And guess what? When does modern science say Homo sapiens showed up on this planet? 200,000 years ago. Just go to any college book and you'll read it and you'll find out that's what the answer is. You think that's a coincidence? Let the womb goddess, let her create primeval man, so that they may bear the yoke, so that they may bear the yoke, the work of Enlil. Oh, we're talking about turning people into slaves now. Now we're getting into real slavery. Now we understand the real full objective here is, okay, we were kind of treating y'all like slaves. We didn't listen. My bad. Now we're going to go ahead and take these people on this planet, turn them into our slaves now. Let them do the work of Enlil. Because Enlil was building big cities. He had this big master plan on the previous tablet where he's showing his sister, Ninurta, that he had a plan he was going to put on this earth for all time. He said, this plan is for all time. From this point forward, everything on this earth will be built based on my blueprint. And guess what? It still is till this very day. To this very day, his blueprint of building cities and structures and communities and all that is still on this planet today, after all these tens of thousands of years, right? He says, so that they may bear the yoke, so that they may bear the yoke, the work of Enlil. Let man bear the load of the gods. Let man bear the load of the gods. Bilitili, the womb goddess, is present. Let the womb goddess create offspring. Oh, in the Bible it says, let us make man in our image. Don't let these pastors fool you with the foolishness. They give you the trickery. Oh, that's the Holy Ghost and the this and the... No, man. It came from this Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish. That's where it came from. There's no... This is the people who said, let us make man in our image. It's right here in the tab. It's actually coming up next. And let man bear the load of the gods. They called up the goddess, asked the midwife of the gods, wise mommy, you are the womb goddess. In Egypt, she's Hathor. It's Hathor. The goddess Hathor is the womb goddess. The creator of mankind. Create primeval man, that he may bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke, the work of Enlil. Let man bear the load of the gods. Let man bear the load of the gods. Nintu made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. It's not proper for me to make him. She's like, wait a minute, man. Hold on. This ain't right, man. This really, you know what? Y'all ain't right. She's like, hold on. I got to make my voice heard. I don't agree with this. I do not agree with this. And guess what? The work of Enki's, he makes everything pure. If he gives me clay, I will do it. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. On the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, I shall make a purification by washing. Then one god shall be slaughtered, and the gods can be purified by immersion. Nintu shall mix clay with his flesh and his blood. They're not talking about taking one actual Anunnaki god and killing him. Some people have translated it that way. What they're talking about is taking genetic material from this guy, from this being, whichever one it was. They're talking about taking genetic material, which is going to be mixed together in something they call clay, but I'm pretty sure it's not the clay we know about. It's something else that allows life to persist. Most likely, some type of a base or a zygote of some type or whatever it is, but it's definitely not dirt clay from the ground. Let us hear the drum beat forever after. Let a ghost come into existence from the god's flesh. Let a ghost come into existence. We're talking about an evolution here through one generation, through this one birth. We're talking about a ghost. Who's the ghost? We're talking about the consciousness inhabiting this new being. We're talking about mankind coming in through this new genetic modification as a new Homo sapiens sapien on this planet, which is born and bred specifically to become a slave. Every single human being, not just blacks, not just whites, not just Asians, not just indigenous people, not just all humans, to become slaves. And guess what? The majority of humans are still slaves to this very day and don't even recognize it. In some cases, physical slaves through employment. In some cases, if you're not doing what you love to do. And in some cases, mental enslavement. He says, on the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, I shall make a purification by washing. Then one god shall be slaughtered, and the gods can be purified by immersion. Then two shall mix clay with his flesh and blood. Then a god and a man, then a god, here we go, here it goes. A god and a man will be mixed together. They're talking about genetically mixing human DNA and these gods, which are Anunnaki DNA. We know they're Anunnaki because that's what they call themselves in this text, which predates everything that exists. He says, then a god and a man will be mixed together in clay. Let us hear the drum beat forever after. Let the ghost come into existence from the god's flesh. Let her proclaim it is a living sign, and let the ghost exist so as to not forget the slain god. Oh, let the ghost exist so as not to forget the slain god. Interesting. That's the same way as saying, let us make man in our image. In other words, every time we look on this being, we're going to see ourselves in it. They answered yes in the assembly. The great Anunnaki who assigned the fates, they call themselves assigners of fates. They call themselves ordainers of destiny in the text too. On the 1st, 17th, and 15th of the month, he made a purification by washing. The Walla who had intelligence, they slaughtered in their assembly. Nintu mixed the clay with his flesh and his blood. They heard the drum beat forever after. A ghost came into existence from the god's flesh, and she, Nintu, proclaimed it as a living sign. In other words, they got a living being now. They got a modification. We got the first valid modification going on. The ghost existed so as not to forget the slain god. After she had mixed that clay, she called up the Anunnaki and the great gods, the Igigi, the great gods. Oh, they called the Igigi great gods too. So it's clear that they weren't slaves. Spat spittle upon the clay. Mommy made her voice heard and spoke to the great gods. I have carried out perfectly the work you ordered of me. In other words, she said, I completed my mission, right? You have slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. Oh, wow. I have relieved you of your hard work. He's talking to the Igigi now. Your hard work is that your days of hard work and slavery is over. Return to do whatever you please now. I have imposed your load on man. You have bestowed noise on mankind. So now you have bestowed all this stress, this hard work, this back-breaking labor And everything else is now going to fall on man. We're going to be the ones making noise. We're going to be the ones complaining. We're going to be the one. But guess what? We don't have the power to overthrow them because they got more technology than us. There won't be a battle coming to the door of Enlil from humans. I have undone the fetter and granted freedom. So the Ijiji now, she's saying, look, you guys are free to do whatever you want. They listened to this speech of hers, and they were freed from anxiety and kissed her feet. We used to call you Mommy, but now your name shall be Mistress of all gods. Far-sighted Enki and Wise Mommy went to the room of fate. The womb goddess were assembled. He trod the clay in her presence. She kept reciting an incantation for Enki, staying in her presence, made her recite it. When she finished her incantation, she pinched off 14 pieces, and 7 pieces to the right and 7 on the left. Between them, she put a mud brick. She used, and some broken pieces in the tablet, she used a reed to cut the umbilical cord. Called up the wise and knowledgeable womb goddess, 7 and 7, 7 created males and 7 created females. So they done took this thing and split it up. So what they're talking about here when she's saying here, 7 pieces on the right and 7 pieces on the left, we're talking about cell division. What they did was they found a way here to divide these and split these embryos into 7 embryos on one side and 7 on the other. So they had 7 males and 7 females that they had created through this method. If you really read into this, the way it's read, the way it's reading, it sounds like cloning, a cloning technique to make these clones. And so she used the same exact clay, the same exact genetic material that was in it, whatever this clay is. And then from there, she was able to get 7 pieces on the left and 7 pieces on the right and took them to full term. And then she cut their umbilical cords, and she had 7 created males and 7 created females. This is before Adam and Eve existed, by the way. There's no Adam and Eve at this point. There's still no Adam and Eve. They came much later down the line. Much later. We're talking about the first set of man that was made to bear the load of these Ijiji. They were made and created by this cloning process. The problem that they had with this cloning process, the further you read into it, these people couldn't reproduce on their own. They couldn't actually have sex together and make their own babies. That was the problem. So they had to keep going through this process of like continuing to make these people by this cloning method. And it was a lot of work. So they wanted to perfect it to where these people can reproduce on their own. And evidence of this is when you look at the biblical text in the Old Testament, and Cain kills Abel, and then Cain is, being talked to by God, who's actually Enlil, and he's pissed off because he's like, man, you killed your brother. Your brother gives me the best food, man. I was like, I like that food he used to get. The offerings were the food of the gods, by the way. They used to eat this stuff. And so he's pissed off at him like, man, I got to kick you out of here, man. This is foul. This guy was bringing me fresh food all the time. Now you killed him. Now what am I going to do? I'm not going to go out here and hunt. So Cain tells him, says, if I go out there, they're going to kill me. This is in the Bible. Now remember, this is supposed to be Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel at this moment. So where's the they that exist out there that are going to kill Cain? Who are these people? These are the people. The ones that Wise Mommy was creating, all right, in South Africa. The one that Wise Mommy was creating in South Africa and making tons and tons of these people to do the load of the Ijiji. These are the people that were out there. And obviously, these people must have been kind of violent. And he knew about them being violent because he was worried that they were going to kill him. Because they're crazy. He says, look, she made use of herself. She said she called up the wise and knowledgeable womb goddess, 7 and 7. 7 created males, 7 created females. So these are the clones, the beginning of the clone age. What do you get? What do you think George Lucas gets the clones and all that out of Star Wars? We got all this stuff from ancient text. For the womb goddess is creator of fate. Then you got a broken piece of tablet here. Them by 2, it says something about them by 2. Them by 2 in her presence. I think they're talking about making 2 and 2 over and over again. That's what it kind of seems like it's trying to say here with the tablet's a little bit broken. Mommy, made these rules for people. In the house of woman who is giving birth, the mud brick shall be put down for 7 days. Bilatilly, wise mommy, shall be honored. The midwife shall rejoice in the house of the woman who gives birth. So now they got this cloning thing and this zygote thing down packed. They're making it happen. They're celebrating themselves. Oh, we're so good. Look what we've done. We now have created a new slave race to do the work for us. I want to be honored on special days. I want holidays named after me. These people are crazy. These are crazy. You're talking about ultimate narcissistic psychopaths, sociopaths. This is it. It don't get no crazier than this. And when the woman gives birth to the baby, the mother of the baby shall sever herself. A man to a girl, to her bosom. There's some broken tablets here. A beard can be seen on a young man's cheek. In gardens and waysides, a wife of her husband choose each other. So they're talking about now, as they're now growing up to a certain point, they leave their parent. We're taking them away from their parents. As soon as we can tell they're in puberty, we see a little bit of hair on the neck. We see that the woman's starting to develop a little bit of a body. The girl's starting to develop a body. We're going to sever her. We can see her bosom now, it says. We can see her bosom. We can see a beard being seen. We're taking them away from the parents. We're ripping them away from the parents now. We're taking them and we're putting them into this other area where we're going to make them mate. This is where they started mating them like animals. And Nintu was present. They counted the months, called up the 10th month as a term of fates. So what they're saying is, instead of a 9-month pregnancy, these pregnancies were lasting 10 months at that time. They were 10-month pregnancies, not 9. And to add credence to that, even further on, when Adam was the firstborn, I guess you say, perfected version of Homo sapiens sapien, one of the actual Anunnaki women themselves gave birth to him because they were trying to perfect the process so that they can mate on their own. And it was a 10-month term as well. And she held him up and said, "My hands have mated," the Adamu, which means first man.
By Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson.